SAP, baby.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the SAP. As always, it is your boy Dave Neal, stand-up comedian and YouTube extraordinaire. We've been killing it over there lately. For those of you that listen on the audio-only version, this episode is being videotaped, as the parents like to say. This is on YouTube. You can go check it out over there. And if you are on YouTube, you can go into the description and click where in this episode you would like to begin, if you're here for one topic or another. You know, when it comes to making titles on YouTube, you have to be very specific with the title you make, even if it's a very non-specific video. So if you came for a certain topic, go into the description and check that out. And for my audio-only people, how you guys doing? Is everyone doing all right today? Good to hear from you. It is important to remember that we are only as strong as our bodies, and I was so sick yesterday. I mean, so sick. I lost 10 pounds in fluid yesterday. I just bought a scale because I've been slipping, as it were. My whole pandemic has been me just cooking out. The first purchase I made during the pandemic was a wok. I bought a big wok, and it's not even always for Asian food. It's just easier to put more food in it. So I'm just cooking in this giant wok. And then after about 9-10 months of the pandemic, I realized, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe you need to get a scale and see if you're in shape, because, it creeps up on you. You start to see like fat on the back of your obliques, and you're like, I didn't even know I could put fat back there. So anyhow, just got a scale. I was at 183, and I was like, all right, maybe in the next 2 or 3 months, I can get this down to 170. That's my fighting weight, 170. And sure enough, yesterday, after getting sick, having the scale for less than a couple days, I lost over 10 pounds, maybe 12 pounds. And it was a violent, I feel better. I feel weak, but I couldn't record yesterday. I couldn't speak. I was so sick I couldn't speak. I was just holding on for dear life. And I don't want to get too in the woods here with what my illness was, but it was whatever, my body was wiped. Just complete hard drive, turn it off, blow on it, wait 10 seconds, restart computer. It was, first of all, I feel great, in the sense that it's a good sort of cleanse for the new year, a cleanse I didn't ask for. But the culprit could have been some Mongolian beef I got a few days earlier that I thought I microwaved enough. But as we know, you got to keep it below 40 degrees or above 140. That's the safe zone for not getting a bacterial infection or whatever it was. Not a doctor. Don't have great health care. I will be getting a COVID test. I've had maybe a dozen COVID tests, and that was sort of the fear, is maybe this is COVID related, but it appears to be leading towards a very short and violent qual. Is that a word, qual? Like a monsoon just kind of came and went. I was going to say quail, but I think that's a bird. Anyway, a lot of people have asked how I've been doing, because I posted on Instagram that it was my first time crapping my pants ever, which I was very proud of. My buddy Harley was like, you mean the first time this year? And I was like, no, I mean, short of being a child, a kid, a baby, I've just been lucky enough, I haven't had this problem. I don't do coke. I don't know. Whatever, I'm good. But then by the end of yesterday, that was, I've made up for lost time. Let's put it that way. I made up for lost time. I thought I was going to die. I did. I kind of thought I was going to die. I was like, at what point do I take this to the hospital? At what point and then you get a little bit better and you go, oh, maybe I'm okay. And then it was just like, my contractions were like every 30 minutes I was losing it. But here I am the next day. So that's why the episode got postponed. And I'll be honest with you. I couldn't speak. I couldn't say any words out loud for a good 12 hours there, which was great for Tayshia. She loved it. She was very happy that I couldn't talk. But I wanted to jump into a few things today. This is what I wanted to talk about on the podcast today. It's a solo episode, which means I'm going to kind of bounce around, pop an Adderall, stick with me. Maybe Vicky's got some supplies over there on Bachelor. She said she was addicted to Adderall, so maybe she's got some amphetamines for us all. Maybe not. But today I wanted to talk about the idea of people that have been on the show The Bachelor becoming influencers and why we shame them for that. Collectively as a nation, we seem to have a way of judging other people for the way they make their money. Later on in this episode, I'm going to show you an interview I just did with my friend Meredith, who has an OnlyFans account. OnlyFans is basically a straight to the consumer sort of I don't know if you call it pornographic. Sometimes it's different for everybody. It can be topless photos. It can be implied nudity, but it's a way for you to charge people for content that they could not see on a typical social media. So I talked to her about getting involved in all that and how kind of like what the economics are about making your money literally straight from the consumer. Sure, these apps, they take a few bucks. I'm on Patreon myself. Patreon.com/thisap. We have a new member. I think Marianne is her name. Welcome to the Patreon. Patreon.com/THESAP. But I have a hard time with my own sort of preconceived thoughts on money, where I have a hard time asking for money and thinking that, well, if you're giving me money, you're not giving money to someone else. And that's why I have to recommend this book. If anyone's got any hangups on money, I don't even have I don't even have like a code for this, because like a affiliate link, but The Law of Divine Compensation on Work, Money, and Miracles. This book by Marianne Williamson, it might change your life, because it really changes the way we think about money in terms of how it's connected to all of us, and, venturing out of your typical money-making mindset. It used to always be, you'd work for the man, they would take care of you, you get your retirement, you go on. But with the different apps that exist, I've been talking a lot about late stage capitalism. We'll get into it, but just the idea that, most of us humans have been failed by a system where, innovations has made it easier for corporations to need less workers, and, they make more money. So because of this pandemic, a lot of mom and pop shops, a lot of small business has been lost. A lot of people have resorted to OnlyFans. As I've mentioned, I've got buddies that sell their plasma and buddies that sell their sperm. And it's any man's game out there. It's nice to have the opportunity to make, your business through these apps. It's nice for all that. But the reason they exist is because there was a market for people that just were sick of being told they had to keep a job because they got good health care from that, and so forth. Here's a couple quotes I'll read from Marianne Williamson's book, The Law of Divine Compensation. And I have to remind you, if you're involved in politics, or if you heard Marianne on the DNC, the presidential primary, she was running for president, and she got a lot of buzz online. Some of it good, some of it bad. But in a world with a bunch of straight-laced, boring, centrist Democrats, talking about like tax cuts for this, this and that. She came on there and talked about this spiritual aching for us to sort of like come together as a nation. And some people were like, couldn't even fathom that type of talk. They were like, what is this quacko? But she was the most Googled person after the presidential debates. And if you kind of see any of her content online, it is simply amazing the way she talks. She's been around forever. She's a best-selling author of tons of books. And she has a real message about what we need to do to understand that the world can be limitless with what it provides us, as long as what we're, looking for is some like, what we seek and what we create is with a high frequency of love, which can sound cheesy for like a comic to say, because most comics are like, hey man, I just want to make the audience laugh. It's like, yeah, no crap, dummy. Making the audience laugh, bringing people together, trying to get the room to feel better when you leave it than when you walked in. That's it, baby. That's love. So when people, it blew my mind the first time I made money as a stand-up comedian. I think that my first thing I made was like $10 or something, or even when I was just making a few, beer ticket coupons. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. I made people laugh. Somebody paid me $20 for it. Then it became $500. My biggest check maybe $1,000, and I'm paying flights to get to places. It doesn't break down to much money, folks. But the idea that your wealth isn't, you don't have to look at someone else's business model to know how it's supposed to be done. The world is our oyster, folks. So I'm going to get into the Bachelor influencers that are really killing it, and why I think they're doing a great job making money, and why I think it's okay to go on the show, look for love, but also be okay if in the end all you get is a verified Instagram and you're selling detox tea. I've been the first to make fun of this culture, but I also need to give it some credit, because the world we live in, the one thing we can do is build equity in ourselves. We're not going to fire ourselves, but most jobs aren't secure. So what are we doing to invest in ourselves and make ourselves irreplaceable? Quick quote from Marianne Williamson. Let me pull over the picture-in-picture here. Sorry about that. All right. Love makes us wake up in the morning with a sense of purpose and a flow of creative ideas. Love floods our nervous system with positive energy. making us far more attractive to prospective employers, clients, and creative partners. Love fills us with powerful charisma, enabling us to produce new ideas and new projects, even within circumstances that seem to be limited. Love leads us to atone for our errors and clean up the mess when we've made mistakes. Love leads us to act with impeccability, integrity, and excellence. Love leads us to serve, to forgive, and to hope. Those things are the opposite of a poverty consciousness. They're the stuff of spiritual wealth creation. So, and I understand, it might be silly to think some of these influencers aren't necessarily on spiritual wealth creation, but the term influencer, it's, when you break it down, it's just people that might buy a product because you sort of, say, hey, this is working for me. It might work for you. It's taking out the commercial middleman and moving on to, to just straight to the consumer. So I talked about late stage capitalism and its characteristics and why the term is trending. I've heard this term a bunch, but I'm not a genius. I barely studied politics in college. I don't know too much about it, but I do know that I've been suffering from sort of, a system that doesn't work for what I'm trying to do. Late stage capitalism describes the unrealistic perspective of the wealthiest 1%. In the same vein, it highlights how the middle class is largely oblivious to the struggles of the poor. It's the sense that monopolies and the oligarchs that run them have rigged the system in their favor. They hired well-paid lobbyists to influence politicians. They won Supreme Court cases such as Citizens United versus FEC 2010 that give corporations the same rights as people. This allows them to spend untold millions on political ads that benefit them. This is kind of like how, we're told as far as Medicare for all that the Canadians hate Medicare for all because it's slow and it doesn't, you have to wait and, all these things. And then, come to find out that was just money spent by the healthcare lobbyists in our country to try to convince people that Medicare for all would be a bad thing when we're one of the only, if not the only country. And, these countries are 40 years ahead of us when it comes to taking care of their people. Yet instead, one sort of way we make people a slave to their job is offering them healthcare discounts. Healthcare shouldn't be a perk. I look forward to the day where a company has to really work to get you to work for them. And it can't just be like, we'll provide your healthcare. Can you imagine that? This job comes with healthcare. If you work for me, I'll give you the right to your own health. I don't really buy that one. Healthcare shouldn't be, feel free to write in or comment, but I don't think healthcare should be something that is a negotiating tool when it comes to your job. Many who use the term late-stage capitalism believe the next phase is socialism. Most agree the new system could include universal basic income. It would subsidize those who lost their jobs to technology. At the very least, the new system should involve universal healthcare. The United States is the only developed country without it. So it's interesting. Because, as I'll mention in my chat with Meredith when we talked about OnlyFans, is that companies like Amazon, Walmart, you take Walmart, for example, they're owned by the Waltons. They pay their employees, probably mainly minimum wage. They'll fire them before they have to give them benefits. They'll let them work a certain amount of hours where they can't collect overtime. And the government, a lot of those people are on unemployment or partial unemployment because they don't make enough with the job that they do. And it's like, what world do we live in where we let this be okay? And look, when you break it down, we're a podcast that talks about dating, relationships, and fun stories. But also, part of having fun in relationships is having a couple extra bucks to take your date out. You know what I mean? Part of, you get that big check. You want to burn a hole in your pocket, take your lady to the fair, but if for people that can't afford, something like there's a giant percentage, something like 40 million people in our country, maybe it's more, they can't afford a $400 emergency. They just don't have that money. And these are people that work full time. They're not lazy. They're probably hardworking than you and I. So late stage capitalism basically has abandoned, these people where they were able to, get people to work for as little as possible. And, all the money goes straight to the top. So it's important for us, if we want to live a world where we're working and getting the most for our time and this and that we really consider sort of, is it fair that somebody who stands on a board somewhere because they had rich parents and went to a good school can make 100 or 1,000 times more than the cleaning lady? And I don't think wealth should be all distributed equally. There needs to be, people that work hard kind of get something in return, but there needs to be some sort of redistribution, which is a scary word for some people to hear, but there needs to be some sort of redistribution when it comes to how we share wealth in our world, because people that are like artists and creators. It used to be you'd live in the East Village, and it'd cost you like $200 a month in rent, so you could afford to not be making money while you create this beautiful mural or whatever it is. And we just live in a world where it's been harder and harder for people to take risks. But then the pandemic comes along, and when the pandemic comes along, we realize people don't have a choice but to like bet on themselves. How many people that said, "Oh, I'm taking a good job for the healthcare," got left on the street and they had to try something new? Like I said, in a few minutes, I'll talk to Meredith, who is making a killing with her OnlyFans account. And she realized, like, I don't need to be on some, cover of this or being paid by somebody else. Everything I want to do, I can do from the home. Problem being is, how do you go from a job that you might tolerate, but it's reliable, it's safe, you work for a corporation, they provide benefits? How do you go from that to sort of the entrepreneurial life of just like giving things a shot? I'm going to talk about Nick Viall, who, if you don't follow The Bachelor, was on several different seasons of Bachelorette and became the Bachelor himself, Bachelor in Paradise, and how he left a $100,000 sales job to just basically roll the dice on essentially becoming an influencer within the Bachelor franchise. So we'll talk a little bit about that. As far as OnlyFans go, here's an article I found from The Guardian that says everyone and their mum is on it. OnlyFans booms in popularity during the pandemic. The site is best known for charging fees for nude content, but making money off it is hard work. Yeah, there's actually comics that are on there that are doing OnlyFans like that aren't for nude content. When the pandemic hit, every single regular job that I had, I was getting sexually harassed in some way. She says this is Bella is her name. She had fled an abusive relationship looking after her newborn daughter and was struggling to find work in far north Queensland. Is that England or is it Australia? Every single job that I had, I was getting sexually harassed in some ways. I would either get fired or I'd have to leave once I reported it. When the pandemic hit, all remaining gigs dried up. I was like, okay, why not make money out of this and have control over my body? So Bella did what thousands of other people around the world did in lockdown. She opened an account on the website OnlyFans. The site, which has boomed in popularity in the past year, is technically open to anyone from personal trainers to artists and cooks, but it's best known for one thing: nudes. Creators charge subscription fees for exclusive content, put up pay-per-view posts, and generate income from tips and live streams. A spokeswoman for OnlyFans told Guardian Australia, so this is Australia, there are more than 1 million creators worldwide, 85 million registered users, and it paid out more than $2 billion this year. So, how does that cushy secretarial job feel now when you can just get your own OnlyFans? There's a quote that I love. And again, I'm bouncing around a little bit, but I'm going to tie it all together here. There's a quote that I love. It's actually from a Twitter, what's this called? A tweet storm, where there's this guy at Naval. He wrote a Twitter thread called "How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky." I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Seek wealth, not money or status. Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep. Money is how we transfer time and wealth. Status is your place in the social hierarchy. Understand that ethical wealth creation is possible. If you secretly despise wealth, it will elude you. Ignore people playing status games. They gain status by attacking people playing wealth creation games. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. You must own equity, a piece of a business, to gain your financial freedom. You will get rich by giving society what it wants, but does not yet know how to get at scale. This is very interesting. And the quote that's been driving me all year long, a couple years now, is you're not going to get rich renting out your time. So for everyone who loves their job, working for a corporation or whatever it is, that's fine. But the day you're done working, in most cases, is the day you're done making wealth. If you're building your equity with anything from a Patreon to an OnlyFans account to a membership to a gym where you're giving online courses, when you're opening yourself up to a bigger business model, you can do the same amount of work and make an exponential amount of money. I make these videos that I make online. They're starting to do okay. They've gained some new subscribers. They've made some decent money. If 400 times the percentage of people find this, that makes sense. 400 times. I'm a little slow, folks. I was sick. If you get a 400% increase in the people that watch my videos, it doesn't take me any more time to make them. I've made videos, where I release them on a Friday, and come Monday, it was a full week's worth of pay. And then it continues to make money as I move on to the next thing. So that's the idea about not renting out your time. A lot of people get involved in we're going to transition this over to The Bachelor. So a lot of people get involved in becoming an influencer when they've been on the Bachelor series. The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, obviously it's a dating show on ABC. The audience is super supportive. They're super dramatic. They love to comment and dig up dirt. They call it tea. A lot of them follow me for my whatever version of recaps you get from me, irreverent chatter, whatever you want to call it. A lot of, in the recent years, Bachelor contestants have turned to becoming influencers to make their money. And a lot of people shame that. They go, oh, this person's doing this for the wrong things, or, this person, they weren't in it for whatever. And I think you go on The Bachelor, you go on to it because you might find someone you love, and that's great. It's always good to find someone you love, but also you have the chance to open up yourself to a much larger brand, whether you're a model or a fitness person or podcaster. A lot get into podcasting. And there is a wealth that comes from being popular to enough people. You can get paid advertising, this and that. So I'm going to try to scroll down here to Nick Viall, because love him or hate him, Nick Viall. Let's see if I can find this on here. Nick Viall was a contestant who has done really well for himself. He just bought his home based off of his audience just supporting him. Wes Hayden, do you remember Wes? No one remembers this. He went on Jillian Harris's season of The Bachelorette in 2009 to promote his music career, a revelation that sent shockwaves through what was once an airtight echo chamber of declarations of love and commitment, whispered in pearl-clad ears over untouched platters of chocolate-covered strawberries. That's a long sentence. Hayden took great pride in his rebellion and also in the fact that he was apparently the first person in the show's history to have made it to the top 4 with a girlfriend back home. First of all, this is insane. I don't even remember this story, but this is insane that, we know on Hannah Brown's recent season, Jed became the guy that proposed to her. They got engaged, and then it kind of came out that he had a girlfriend back home, which he has always denied. But whether they were completely together or had been dating, who knows? So Instagram comes along in 2010, and eventually with it, the billion-dollar influencer marketing industry, which made it possible for, say, a software salesperson to go on The Bachelor and leave with 500,000 followers, a FabFitFun sponsorship deal, and at the very least, a podcast. With the advent of social media, a tool not available to Hayden in 2009, the scope of the show's influence and that of its contestants has grown exponentially. Brands are smart to want to cash in. So what you realize is that, people will just do an unboxing and make, anywhere from $1,000, $10,000. I mean, they're making incredible amounts of money. And there was some, a contestant on the show a couple years ago who I always made fun of, that she, was, avoiding her 2 daughters and, being too busy building her influencing platform. But, she's making a ton of money, and that's one way to provide for your family. So I don't know. So let's see if I can find where Nick is on here. Basically had a story about Nick on the back. He had a, sorry guys, here it is. How Bachelor star Nick Viall tries to be smart with money. So, when Nick decided to make a Patreon, he got a lot of hate from people being like, no, pass, I don't want to see it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to open my wallet to you. And that's fine. It's fine for people to decide not to want to support something. But what he realized is that there's just money to be made from the promotion of being on the show. So whatever it is that makes somebody get a following, there's just always money to be made from that. And you can do it under your own terms. You can do it with supporting things that you believe in. Nick Viall, best known for his many turns on ABC's The Bachelor reality franchise, 2 stints on Bachelorette, 2014-2015. Wow, he's been in this community for over half a decade. He's focused on a series of business and creative endeavors to build a brand beyond The Bachelor, working as an actor on TV and appearing in TV and internet-based commercials. His weekly relationship podcast, The Viall Files, been ranked iTunes Top 50 Podcast of the Week. Its most popular episodes downloaded 600,000 times. He grew up in Wisconsin as the second oldest in a family of 11 kids. And then, I'm trying to get to the goods here. So he came from a family that had some money, but wasn't, just crushing it. And he was working for Salesforce, a sales company, after his second season on The Bachelorette, and that's when he decided to move to Los Angeles with his small amount of savings and just roll the dice and see if he could make any money. It's a big leap of faith to go from a 6-figure job and decide that you were going to want to work for yourself. He said, when you've accumulated some wealth, you have the freedom to take risks. I didn't have a ton of money, but I had enough money to say I could do this for a year. I have a year to make it work. No matter how much you make, you got to put some money aside, or you got to start investing for the future. That's something I've always done. Shavings make a pile. That's very interesting. He said he never gets comfortable. The downside of doing reality TV is you can lack credibility with a lot of people. They don't necessarily think you're deserving of anything other than a reality TV show. I had to work hard to gain credibility. All right, so that's enough of that. This is from the article. This is from grow.acorns.com. I'll put a link in the description. But it's very interesting to hear from somebody who, he might be one of the most successful Bachelor contestants of all time, and he doesn't offer anything that's too crazy. He's not, the biggest stud of all the contestants or the most charismatic, but you can tell from his own hard work and putting himself out there that he's following that tweet storm that says don't rent out your time. He's making content where he's not earning a commission from a company. That's what sales is always the opportunity in business to make a ton of money because you're selling someone else's thing. And it's like, imagine how much money you can make selling somebody else's thing and then how much you can make when you are the thing. And he's done a great job with that. As a stand-up comedian, I've always been interested in the, what I'm about to show you here. It's called the 1,000 True Fans theory. And I don't need to read all of this, but the idea is basically, I'm having a hard time pulling this up. I'll just tell you guys. The idea between 1,000 true fans is that if you have 1,000 fans that decide to spend $100 on you a year, that's a $100,000 job. You can live very well with that. The idea that we used to have that you needed to sell out arenas or have this huge following to go tour, it's just an archaic thought. We're in a world of like micro niches. So, even with my content, I've only been having real success making Bachelor related content because that's what is being searched out there. And then hopefully people find me and they go, oh, I like her. Maybe I'll see your stand up. There's other streams of income that I hope to fill up from a niche that's working. But, the idea of 1,000 true fans is it's nice to know that it's not some number where, well, if you get 100,000 Instagram followers, that's, you can make X, Y, and Z. Sure. But if you can get 1,000 people to buy some of your products every year, you got something going on. And if you're an artist or you're selling tickets to whatever it is, it's not too crazy to think. With Patreon, if someone spent $9 a month on my Patreon, that's $108. Did I get that right? Wow. So it's not an incredible number, and I like to break it down in its like simplest form because I think it's important for us to realize if we're pursuing a new venture, whatever it may be, to know that there's so much money that's been kind of gone to people that when you work for a corporation, like take us Spotify, right? It probably takes them 40 people to produce a podcast. There's a guy holding a clipboard. There's a dude over there. There's this and that. So if you have 1 million downloaders, you might not be doing too well. But if you have 1 million downloaders and you produce your own content, oh my gosh, you live in a mansion. You're worth more than the CEO of Spotify. You know what I mean? So the idea that, so much has been skimmed off the artist, it's something that, we need to do a better job of realizing what kind of creativity and wealth we can build on our own. So I just, I recommend checking out Marianne Williamson and understanding the sort of spiritual, and let's see if there's any other good quotes I can pull up from that. We lack faith in what exists within us because we lack faith in who exists within us. I mean, honestly, every other quote from her is just blows my mind. A miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love, from a belief in what is not real to faith in that which is. That shift in perception changes everything. Yeah, I won't read the whole book to you guys, but I think you get, some episodes we have a stupid, conversation with someone about, their dating life, which we always love to do. But then sometimes it's like, all right, when I do these solo episodes, I like to challenge ourselves to think in a way, I'm going to butcher this quote, but she said something about how the laws of actualization, like wishing for something and working towards it. It's like prayer is basically all the electrical wiring around your house, and we're a lamp that's not plugged in. So if you can plug yourself into the network of self-actualizing and whatever that may be, maybe you believe in God, maybe you believe in nothing, or you believe that God's within all of us, or we're a collective conscience, whatever it is, if you can find the spirituality to know that you've got sort of God within you. And I say this because in the book she talks about how it sounds so like such a humble brag to be like, I'm God's gift to this world. But we're all God's gift to this world. If you think that whatever created us is a piece of all of us, we have within us the same thing that Leonardo da Vinci had, the same thing that Claude Monet had, and we've all got this ability to create. We just have to access that side of us. And so many of us came from a world where, like, my stepdad told me when I was 10, I wasn't going to be a pro baseball player. That's like, if someone told me that their stepdad told them they wouldn't be a pro baseball player at the age of 10, I'd want to hug them and be like, man, because you know what? On the practical side of things, he was right. But maybe I would have gone in a different direction where who knows the limitations that are set on us from our parents and from a world that kind of tells us, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're an influencer. Oh, you went on The Bachelor and now you sell detox tea. It's very shaming that we judge other people for how they receive their income. And I think by shaming other people, we're putting a low energy on money. And it's hard, you don't see really rich people shaming others for how they make their money. Maybe some do, but I think for the most part, once you can tap into abundance, you don't have buyer's remorse on like what it took to get there. As long as you're not hurting other people in the process. Like maybe Amazon needs to look into paying their employees more and cutting down on their, trillions in profits because, they're putting mom and pop shops out of business left and right. I don't know. All right, so let me get out of that. And then, okay, so next I wanted to show you, I told you about the 1,000 True Fans. And I'm not saying this in some sort of way where I'm trying to pitch you guys. Look, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything here. I just think we have to think in a way of what's doable. It took me a long time to get into stand-up comedy because before I had ever gone to an open mic or a like amateur stand-up show, you just assume everyone was Chris Rock on stage. And then all of a sudden you go to a kind of an amateur show and you go, oh, I'm not Chris Rock, but I can be funny like that. I can do something like that, and it opens the door to opportunity. And when you breathe life into a new way of thinking, everything becomes, how can I find the funny in a normal situation? Or when you open the door to, if you're an architect, everything becomes angles, and you start like getting inspired by this world you're breathing life into. So the goal is to bring life into what it is we do. By doing that, we do what we love, and it's hard to know exactly what you love, but what makes you feel good? It might be something as simple as liking to garden and building solar panels. Well, I think you can convert, you can, all right, well, you like to garden and you like to build solar panels. Maybe you make a solar powered pergola, whatever the hell it's called. Pergola? Prerogative? That's my pergola. I don't know what it is, folks, but the idea is like you find it in here. You start to listen to the inner child say, this is what I like to do. This is what brought me joy. How can I share that with the world, because I will be compensated for dually by sharing something positive. The danger, I heard Elon Musk talk about this, the danger of pursuing things because other people have made money off of it, that's not good. You should never pursue something because others made money off of it unless it's something you already love. So we need to look at what our passions are, what we love. I know some people that listen to the podcast. Some people are stay-at-home moms with a good idea, and maybe they, whatever it is, guys. We live in a world where capitalism, in its general sense, sort of has failed us because capitalism is really built on, and again, all you scholars can leave a comment, let me know how I'm wrong, but it's built on maximizing your profit, maximizing your return for your shareholders, redoing the iPhone every year, redoing all these things. My stupid iPhone's 3 years old and it's literally shutting down for no reason because I updated the software and it told me, buy a new phone, now you're going to work slower. And what do they tell us? Oh, it's just to preserve the battery. Come on. They're killing us, folks. They're killing us. In Ireland, they can't even, in Subway, they can't refer to the buns as bread because in Ireland, they decided this literally doesn't have enough bread ingredients into it because Subway probably decided they were going to just like make more money by cutting out something and adding in something cheaper. It's what happened in the sugar industry when Coca-Cola went to corn syrup because it was cheaper. All these things, guys, and it was only cheaper because the government made a subsidy on it. So next thing you know, the government's helping us pump more sugar into our kids. It's a lot to untangle, but just know it's probably wise to understand that other people got jobs, corporations aren't gonna, you're replaceable. So find something you can do in your life that's irreplaceable. Find something that's you're the only one, and that's it, and carve your identity into being authentic, and people will show up. I can speak to that. People have showed up. So I appreciate you guys showing up. I'm going to air for you right now a conversation I had. It's going to be a little choppy. I just looked at it and noticed I messed up the frame rate. So the video is a little choppy, but the audio is good. So just have a listen. This is my conversation with my friend Meredith, who has a very successful OnlyFans account. She's been on the podcast in the past a couple times. We've had really good conversations. So I wanted to talk to her about what it's like kind of taking matters into her own hands and starting an OnlyFans account. So enjoy this chat with Meredith. Today we're here with my good friend Meredith Jacqueline. How are you today, Meredith?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for joining my show. I don't really do Zoom much, and I just immediately thought of getting you on the podcast to talk about OnlyFans, but also I wanted to let people know how we met, stand-up comedy, and I mean, you've been on the podcast now probably 3 or 4 times. You're approaching like a gold star level.
Right. Like like the people who host SNL like 5 times or whatever.
Exactly. You're going to get a nice Letterman jacket.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen you since the pandemic. I know you kind of jumped into the OnlyFans world. Tell me what it's been like kind of creating your own content during this time.
Well, I've been doing OnlyFans for probably like a year before the pandemic started. And I was, doing content here and there in sort of more of a secret way. I had like a premium Snapchat. And so it wasn't, a completely new endeavor. But when, shit hit the fan, I was making my living from OnlyFans already. But I mean, April, it was just like through the roof because everybody was at home and bored.
They just got their stimulus money.
Right. Well, and I put my subscription on sale for a little while, and it just blew up. And it's kind of been, I feel a little guilty for being like the success guilt during pandemic when so many people are struggling, but it's been like really amazing for me. And it's honestly kept me sane. It's kept me busy.
Well, I'll pull it up right here. I've been reading this book over and over, The Law of Divine Compensation by Marianne Williamson. And it's like, it's whatever people want to give you for money. It's not taking away from other people. There's this abundance in the world that exists like on the spiritual level, and then it's kind of translated into money. So, don't get me wrong. Someone might have an addiction and they need to feed their family, but instead they're throwing, a subscription at you. But for the most part, it's
generally speaking, no one's choosing between feeding their children and the, $15.99 a month it costs to subscribe to me.
I've had that where I've got the $50 a level month on my Patreon, and I'm like embarrassed when people buy it because I'm like, guys, I just feel guilt. You know what I mean? It's like, but that's all in my head. They might be trust fund rich. Like what?
Right. Like.
So you had a year on OnlyFans before it kind of blew up. And what has the experience been like doing it? I mean, and I hate to ask about how like. Is there like the whole kind of like thesis behind this episode is kind of how we have to deal with our own shame, with the way we are shamed by our parents and society. Has it been, and you're a free and open person, from Texas. Has there been any sort of like dealing with the outside world that you do this?
Sure. I am so lucky to have an immediate family that is very much kind of like, hey, as long as you're happy and not doing anything you don't want to do, and you're, taking care of your bills and stuff, like whatever. So that's nice that I don't have to like have that uncomfortable conversation with my mom or anything. But my extended family, a lot of them don't really talk to me much anymore because it's frowned upon or whatever. Okay. That to me, it's kind of like, all right, fine. If you're going to be that much of an asshole, then I don't need you in my life. That's so negative and toxic. I wouldn't want someone in my life anyway who was looking down on me for I'm not doing anything wrong. Like, I'm not hurting anyone.
And that's something our country has had a hard time overcoming throughout the years, this Puritan culture. And the thing, so I've been talking about how we kind of naturally shame and make fun of Bachelor contestants for becoming influencers, but I'm kind of looking more into what they call late stage capitalism. You know, Amazon's worth trillions, Walmart, all these big companies, and then their employees are living off of unemployment because they don't even make enough living. So the idea of like profit before everything has destroyed all of us in different ways, and it's forced us to kind of try to make our money on our own. And one of my favorite quotes is the quote, "Don't rent out your time." And so the idea that you can do an OnlyFans, and I brought it up here, you have something like 67,000 hearts, 156 videos. I mean, they don't show the numbers on it, but I'm always addicted to seeing people's Patreons to be like, what are they making per month? But it looks like it's been something that whether you make one photo or one video, the market is the whole world for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, it's unlimited market. And I had a kind of different experience than like a girl just starting out trying to do it, and that I already had a social media following. I already had, a decent base on Instagram and Twitter and stuff. And I have other friends with large followings and stuff. But, we're just kind of in a world where it's like a get in where you fit in. Like, you kind of got to do what you got to do thing. And no matter what job you do, if you work in an office, if you work in a restaurant, anywhere, you are using your assets, your skills to earn a living. Well, my assets and my skills are the way that I look and marketing. So,
large assets, you're saying. You've got a large...
some assets.
Check her out, folks. There'll be you'll get a couple more extra hearts out there. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's all economics. People have decided, oh, this is actually, I can make some good money. I mean, it's like for me and my YouTube, I started making some money on it. So I'm like, well, let's lean into that. I have a YouTube video I made 9 years ago. I made it in 2012, and it just started to make money for whatever reason. It's just living online and it's making money. And it's like, oh, that was equity I put into, my comedy 8 years ago. And it wasn't exactly right away, but it's like you're investing in yourself. And, when it comes to sexual things, I think people just take this purist approach. Some people, we're moving far in society with what we think about it. I mean, I think 5 years ago, this, OnlyFans, maybe it did exist, but it wasn't nearly as like the cultural push today to be like, your body, do what you want with it. Yeah,
no, it would have been very, very different world 5 years ago. And even, a few years ago when I started doing like a premium Snapchat, I was still kind of like nervous about telling people and didn't really want to be like upfront about it and stuff.
Was that the first venture into the money exchange for either nudity or implieds?
No, the first beginning was on like Instagram and Snapchat and stuff. I would post on my story a censored photo and say, if you want the uncensored one, PayPal me $25 or something like that. And then I realized, oh, okay, I can do this on a consistent basis and people will pay. Now the market is a lot more saturated, so I'm not really getting away with charging $25 for one picture of my boobs, but I'm getting, infinitely more people to spend money. So it kind of, even
and then with the OnlyFans, you don't have to worry about the Venmo requests or sending this or that. But that is interesting. That is such a capitalist, just there was a demand. People were willing to throw money and you were cool with it. And then that's what started off. And then it explodes with the use of like apps like OnlyFans and premium Snapchat and all that. And now do you remember the moment when you were like pressing the button on the first upload? Have you felt more confident doing more risque things on it with the support of the community?
Definitely. When I started my OnlyFans, I was just doing like topless, some full nude. I was like a little more timid about what I would show. And then as I gained more subscribers and people were willing to tip to see extra and stuff, I just became a lot more comfortable really kind of going hardcore on it. And my subscribers on OnlyFans are like the nicest people too. If I tweet something about having a bad day or whatever, I will have like 10 DMs from my subscribers, just like, wishing that I would have a better day or sending me a picture of their dog or like being just genuinely kind.
Now I've had you on the podcast. This reminded me, I think you had a fan of yours you ended up dating briefly who like met you through Twitter, like a slide into the DMs, right? Do you remember that?
Instagram, yeah.
Okay, so is that an option? Sorry?
No, he's not like a, he never like bought content from me or anything. It was completely separation of church and state there.
Very important. Very important to separate that church and state. I don't know which one's the church and which one's the state, but that's up for you.
I think I'm the church and my OnlyFans is the state.
You should have like a theme this week for the inauguration, like rating my Capitol building or something. You know what I mean? So what else did I want to ask you about this? Because, I mean, there is going to be a shift in society about just being okay with people doing what they want, but there's kind of, you have a lot of nice tattoos, and it's kind of the same thing where they say it's like tattoos and OnlyFans. Well, you're going to regret this when you're older. How do you sort of factor in the things don't really die off the internet?
I don't really have much of a problem with that. I don't know. That doesn't bother me. I think that we as a society are way, way too puritanical about our views on sex and female sexuality and women taking ownership over their own bodies. I mean, since the beginning of advertising, women's bodies have been sexualized by every industry that exists. So what is the problem with us doing it to ourselves to earn a living and to pay our bills? I mean, we're just doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. What
you're doing is taking away the profit off of the big corporations. I mean, I was thinking about this with friends that I know who have done Playboy and other magazines, and you're probably crushing them. It's like by having the content on your own, being in charge of it. And it's also important too, when, you see these photo shoots people do, that photographer's taking photos while they're changing into their next outfit or whatever. Like, you don't get rights. They have the power. It's always been like the model doesn't have the power, even in porn. The only people that make money in porn are the ones that produce it, everything else. So for you to own your own content and everything and be able to control whatever creative thing you want to do must be very, it must make it a lot more fun to create because it's just like no boss, And
it's so much safer. I mean, like, I do the vast majority of my content in my apartment by myself. Like, I'm controlling 100% the content that is created, that is put out. I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. The few times I've made a video with a partner, it's been someone I was dating who was comfortable with it. So it's not, I'm not.
Do they get a cut, or is it just the generosity?
I mean, they're usually just happy to be there.
Yeah, that's economics, baby. We're not good at negotiating. We're like, oh, you want me here? If Tosh was ever like, yeah, I'm gonna blow you, I'll be like, yeah, please do. I'll take it. She's like, do you want a percentage?
Right? Like,
no,
you're getting a full job out of it. Like, yeah, what do you
care? My last question was, I completely forgot. What was I gonna say? Do you? Yeah, I don't even know where I was going to go with that. I think I got everything I wanted from you. That sounded so. I got everything I needed. Just like your OnlyFans. Yeah. Oh, that was the question I had. Sorry. I so overthink things with like people online. You get mad at me for either side. Like, some people are happy I'm having a casual conversation. Some people think I don't know. I need to not worry. You kind of mentioned the ability to like do what you want with this all in. I think about authenticity when we do things that are authentic, when we're kind of like not worried about what someone else thinks, we really do like kick it up another gear energy level, which kind of sounds very, spiritual, but like there's something rewarding about just being your authentic self, making content you want to make. And someday you might spin that into a different direction and you might build fans that'll be with you for different things. And it's just kind of refreshing to see people that aren't sort of like owned by a sitcom. Like, if you were on a TV show, you're not doing this. You can't even do like Miss Universe without getting shamed for being in a topless scene 5 years ago or something absurd like that. It's just wild, the double standards that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that my subscribers also see in my content is that it's genuine and real and I'm having a good time doing it. And so I think that makes it even more enjoyable for them to know that it is very, very authentic.
Do you have an issue with guys when you start to date them? Like, do you tell them this is what you do? Yeah.
Very honest and upfront because I 100% understand if a guy would maybe be uncomfortable dating someone who does what I do. That's very normal. That's not weird. It kind of depends on why he's uncomfortable about it. But that's okay. Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time. And the kind of guy who would not be comfortable with dating someone who does what I do is probably not the kind of person I'm really interested in dating anyway. And I also want to know that whoever I'm dating, I'm going out with, we're on the same page about how we feel about sex work in general, because I'm very, very much pro sex work of all kinds of sex work, full service to, taking topless photos. I don't personally do full service, but I'm supportive of that career choice. And so I want whoever I'm dating to have the same values that I do.
That's great. I think that's great to let people know if you have an issue with this, see your way out up front. Some people, I've been talking a ton about purity culture, and I grew up in New England where we had some sex shaming happening, but not nearly like what can happen in some pockets of the South where, they go to these purity balls where they marry their chastity and their dad walks them down the aisle. And it's like, oh my gosh, the hormone, issues where you just want to have sex or do whatever you want. And you just have this this nonstop chatter of how it's evil.
Yeah, the guilt. Even though I grew up in Texas, I grew up in the South, and I went to Catholic school, but I don't ever remember learning any sort of shame about sex. It was never something I should feel bad about. So, I just haven't carried that with me at all.
We had a priest tell us not to masturbate, and I mean, come on, you're going to masturbate. Now I have to masturbate and feel bad about it. It's a whole lot. It's a whole lot there. Yeah. They were like, don't touch. One guy said, don't touch, or if you keep touching yourself, it'll stop growing. I heard this at an early age. That's terrifying to hear that and you're like, but I can't help. Oh, horrible.
Now, some grown man with a small penis is walking around just I did this to myself.
I asked for it. No, Jeremy, you just have a stumpy dick. And I wanted to ask you, what's your Bachelor connection? Because you're over there on the West Side where all the Bachelor folks live.
Well, actually, so from Bachelorette, this most recent season, Ben is my nutrition coach. I actually literally was texting with him right before I got on because I'm taking a class from him starting in a couple of weeks. But yeah, he's a coach at my gym.
I tell you what, if you want to spike your OnlyFans, you get him in one of your videos. I'll pay to see old Benny. He's a good looking guy.
He is a really good looking guy, but no. This is a professional relationship. So I'm not even going to try.
I'll tell you what, I got some fans here that are going to follow you on Instagram and follow him. And they're going to be shuffling through paperwork to see if there's any connection. But was he your nutrition coach before he was on the show?
I hired him I didn't hire him. I enrolled in the program that he, the one-on-one coaching that he does kind of right before it aired. It just kind of, the timing just sort of kind of fell around a sort of same-ish time, but I knew he was going to be on it. But I mean, I'd known who he was through the gym since he's been there for a couple of years.
He was up and running for, I mean, he'll be involved in the franchise in one way or another. Cause once you get to that top level,
although he is I will say he seems, I don't know him very, very well. I just know him as, in the scope of our, client coach kind of relationship, but he seems like an incredibly down to earth dude who genuinely loves what he does. But who knows? Although I'm going to be really mad if he goes on to be Bachelor and then I have to just figure out how to eat by myself.
Yeah, you can blame your diet goes away and it's like, well, my nutritionist is a celebrity now.
Your fault. You did this.
Well, you got a little guest appearance by your dog back there. Is that your puppy? Oh, nice. Today's my dog's 12th birthday, so we're going to take him to Starbucks to get a puppuccino later on today.
That's special.
Yeah, we try, well, thanks so much. How can people find you? Your OnlyFans is at the Meredith, Meredith. I'll put it in the description. And then remind me, Instagram, is it Meredith?
Meredith actually is the Instagram, and my Twitter is also the Meredith.
Great. Well, I hope one or two people indulge in your OnlyFans. And I'll just say your bio. I love it. It's comedian, Texan, thought, uncensored, and up to no good. There it is. Thanks so much for talking to me, and I hope to see you soon when the world opens back up. It's been a long time.
I know, for sure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you later. Thank you guys so much for watching this podcast episode of The Sap. If you've never kind of checked out my content before, all of the episodes, over 400, are available on audio only. You can go to the link in the description if you want to check out the audio only episodes. Sometimes you're listening to something or watching something on YouTube while you do the dishes. There's still half an hour conversation left. You got to go pick your kid up out of school. Just click on your favorite app that you listen to podcasts on: Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iTunes, whatever, Apple Podcasting. It's on there, and you can go and just pick up the conversation where you left off. For all those people that are watching on YouTube, if you could hit the like button, that would be greatly appreciated. It lets YouTube know you enjoyed this content, and it'll show them to more people. If you want bonus content or just want to support me, there's several ways you can do that. I put my Venmo link in the description. So many people on YouTube have been sending me such generous Venmo donations. I appreciate it so much. If you have the means, and it's something, to preach what Marianne Williamson says, the law of divine compensation. If you think I provided you that sort of value, I appreciate it so much. If you're watching on YouTube, you know that I've done a lot of work this last year to sort of try to increase the visual aspects of the podcast and other YouTube videos. I got my green screen behind me. I'm in a 100 square foot area making this. It's very cramped. Go check out my Instagram if you want to see the videos of how cramped it is. But, the dog's always sitting beneath me. We're always having a good time. And a big shout out, of course, to my loyal audio only listeners. The last year's been crazy. The audio version of the podcast has probably decreased by 30%. People aren't driving to their jobs. I know, as a podcast listener, I listen to only about half the podcasts I used to listen to. So there's a lot of death within the audio format this year. Likewise, the YouTube has grown by 400%, close to 500%. So while I can, hate that the podcast is on the audio version is a sinking ship, I do appreciate that more people are finding us through the YouTube channel, and I thank you guys so much for that. I much actually prefer if people watch the podcast than listen, because right now I don't have any sponsorships on the audio only, but I do look forward to the day where the audio only version can become its own revenue stream. If people do like hearing my solo episodes, most of them are on the Patreon only version of the podcast. I do a lot of Bachelor related content on the YouTube, but on the Patreon, I'm really talking current events, reading weird dating advice, self-improvement, motivation. It's really just a solo kind of let the mind explore. And I do that 2 to 4 times a month. And there's different tiers you can join based on what you feel comfortable giving. It's a monthly subscription. You can cancel anytime. So for the people that have been following me on the Patreon, I appreciate you guys so much for your loyalty, for sticking with me. And just know, you haven't been forgotten, and the amount of gratitude I have for those that have made an otherwise very tough year financially bearable. What the government has forgotten about us, and you guys haven't. So I appreciate everyone who's stuck around for that, and all the nice comments on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching this. If you want to check out my live streams, I'll be on YouTube Monday nights at 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's late, but it's right when The Bachelor ends, so I go on there 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Times during Bachelor season, and then 4 p.m. on Thursdays Pacific Standard Time if you want to check out any of those live stream chats. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for listening or watching this podcast. I appreciate y'all so much, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Yes.